Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another video. Palpatine was mentioned a handful of times in Andor episode 7 announcement. In my full episode breakdown, I mildly speculated that there's a chance we will indeed see the Emperor at some point in this show, although I will say I'm much more confident about a massive media appearance instead, as he was often Palpatine's representative on Coruscant in the Imperial Senate and sometimes spoke on his behalf. Granddaddy Palps is known as the biggest baddest villain in the galaxy, and while I would love to see him make an appearance, I'm kind of leaning towards him probably not showing up, at least for the time being, as the situation on Aldhani and other rebel activity hasn't warranted him speaking in the Senate just yet, although he was informed about the garrison heist through Yularen, and Mon Mothma is convinced that if Luthen continues, quote, Palpatine won't hesitate. Now, the latest string of mentions in Andor has left fans asking one question: will Emperor Palpatine be in the show? Honestly, it's very possible. After all, in 5 BBY, Palpatine is at the height of his power, but I think it's going to take a larger escalation of rebel activity for him to finally step in. We've already heard about an increase in sanctions for insurgencies, and the Empire is seeking to tighten their fist on sparks of devious behaviour. One thing to consider though is that he could very well appear as a hologram, delivering his instructions to the higher-up Imperial officers. And why should we assume that Yularen is the only big Imperial figure that we're going to see introduced in this show? If we're lucky, we might also see Tarkin or Krennic or both, and we know there's a connection to the Death Star project, Project Stardust, in the next couple of episodes in the prison. But I've already spoken about that several times in recent days, but considering Tony Gilroy's words before the series dropped that he's against big cameos, what I think's going to happen is that the show's going to keep mentioning him, and maybe some of his behind the scenes activities and instructions, but we're never going to actually see him. In this way, the show reminds us of the political landscape happening behind the scenes in this time period of the galaxy, without explicitly inserting such a massive cameo into the show. And maybe this option is for the best. Ultimately, at this stage though guys, it's impossible to tell, but I'd love some sort of Ian McDiarmid appearance, even if it's just Palpatine in a hologram, just like in the Kenobi show. So next up, my dear Megalorians, we have some great news for Andor. Nicholas Britell, who scored the music for this masterpiece of a Star Wars series, has revealed that Volume 1 of the soundtrack, which means the music for episodes 1 to 4, comes out tomorrow on Friday. The music for this series has been at times subtle but perfect for the tone and themes of Andor. Some of my favourite pieces from this soundtrack are when he introduces new musical elements to the Star Wars repertoire of amazing scores. Notably his Morlana 1 theme, and in yesterday's episode, Neomos and the initial credits music. Some real funkiness that has a variety of inspirations, but works well for the galaxy far, far away, so I'll definitely be checking this out when it drops. Super exciting stuff. Now we're going to return to Andor in just a moment, but first of all a breaking news story from Deadline about the future of Lucasfilm. Michelle Rejwan steps down as SVP at the company and returns to producing, with overall deal at Lucasfilm and Walt Disney Studios. Let's dive into this. Michelle Rejwan has transitioned back to being a full-time producer and signed an overall deal with Lucasfilm and Disney. The woman, once believed to be the eventual successor to Kathleen Kennedy, has decided to step down and continue out of a Lucasfilm office, simply dealing with production duties. Rejwan most recently served as executive producer on Lucasfilm Disney Plus series Obi-Wan Kenobi, Andor, and the upcoming show Willow. In her new role, Michelle Rejwan will continue to be executive producer on Andor Season 2, and she's also said to be attached to future feature projects, including Taika Waititi's upcoming Star Wars movie. Prior to joining the Lucasfilm executive team in 2019, Michelle was part of the company's wider production family and served as producer on 2019's The Rise of Skywalker, and back in 2015, she co-produced The Force Awakens. Rejwan also spent 7 years at J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot in Los Angeles, where she served as co-producer on 2013's Star Trek Into Darkness. She was also associate producer on 2011's Super 8, both directed by J.J. Abrams, but this move definitely comes as a surprise. Word on the street for the last 2 years was that she was being prepped by Disney and Lucasfilm to eventually take over from Kathleen Kennedy when she eventually decides to retire, but that no longer looks to be the case. So now, as promised, we return to Andor, and we have a really fascinating article by IndieWire. As we just surpassed the episode after the halfway point, it's interesting to reflect on how the series was shaped by spy missions, a heist, and flashbacks that lead to Rogue One, and the twists and turns the show is taking as we go into episode 8. Now, I just want to reiterate that yesterday was a standalone episode. That was in Tony Gilroy's own words. I covered it the other day, I made a point of it in the breakdown, but I've seen some folks disagree, so I'm gonna reinstate it now. now, this show has worked in 3-episode arcs. Episodes 1 to 3 was one arc, 4 to 6 was the second, 7 is a standalone, 8, 9 and 10 are the third arc, and episodes 11 and 12 are the 2-part finale. Again, this is from Tony Gilroy's own words with Empire magazine. So now that we're going into episode 8, a new arc is about to unfold, undoubtedly Andor in prison, and of course, his escape, making StarWars.net believe that this arc is how the show begins to connect to season 2, and later, Rogue One. We're moving into all the stuff with the Death Star, and the inmates of the prison have to build parts for it, so as I said at the start of the video, maybe we will see Tarkin or even Krennic. But in this new interview with IndieWire, Tony Gilroy said the following: "You come from the feature world, and on every big movie you're always worried about running time from the very beginning. You shoot too much or the script's a little flabby. Sometimes you can break a story if it's compacted too much. And the great thing about Andor is that 12 episodes allows it to take its time, and that's what Tony says it's all about." He goes on to say, "We needed the flexibility of a more conventional shoot, where there's a lot more choices available," and he's talking about the use of the volume, or rather lack thereof. They only used it for certain scenes. He says, like any show, you need to be able to set the table and understand what's going on. And about the final few episodes, he says, quote, "I think everyone is going to be surprised where this show goes." And to be fair, I believe him fully, but he does say that while season 1 took its time, season 2 is going to be slightly different. It is going to be more compressed. He said we're jumping between years, but he reassures fans the series is not going to be rushed. By the end of it, it's going to feel complete. And on the subject of rewatching it, he thinks the show recontextualizes Rogue One, but also going back and revisiting the episodes, he thinks we as the audience are going to see each one in a brand new way, and that's what's been so great about the series. A lot of information as the show goes on reinforms previous episodes, and we're also starting to see that in terms of themes, notably in episode 7, the re-emergence of Andor's sister. And by the way, I'm more convinced than ever that it's Clea. But that's a different subject for a different day. But this time Tony does kind of hesitate in terms of confirming that we're not getting any fan service. While he is excited to get away from the TIE fighters, he doesn't want to answer any specific questions regarding cameos and anything or anyone who could appear. He just wants us to see the series for what it is, and that's how I've been enjoying it week to week. Really exciting. A final comment I want to highlight from Tony is, quote, "You're setting up characters and showing where Cassian is in his life, which is lost. He's got a lot of great qualities, but doesn't quite know where he fits in, and so he's malleable." And I kind of think he's talking about the journey that Andor's going to go on in the final few episodes. More than anything, changing his mind on joining the rebellion, his mum's part of it, Vela's part of it, and now that he has Nemik's manifesto, that, amongst other things, maybe escaping from prison, could teach him a lot of lessons. He is slowly going to become the Andor we know in Rogue One, but as he says in that film, he's done a lot of terrible things in the name of the rebellion. Let's see how it unfolds. But share your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. Did you enjoy Andor episode 7? And what are your fan theories for where we go from here? Share those down below if you enjoyed this video. Please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you always.